In the mid-1800s, the American diet was bland, expensive, and limited. But in a small storefront on Vesey Street in Lower Manhattan, a revolution was brewing. George Huntington Hartford didn't just want to sell tea, he wanted to dismantle the entire supply chain. By cutting out the middleman, Hartford and his partner, George Gilman, did something radical. They made luxury affordable. This was the birth of the Great Atlantic and Pacific Tea Company, A&P. At its peak, A&P was more than a store. It was the largest retailer in the history of the world. Before there was Walmart, before there was Amazon, there was the red circle of A&P. It was a company so powerful that the US government eventually sued it for being a monopoly. But the real threat to the Hartford billions wasn't the Department of Justice. It was a golden-haired boy born in 1911 named Huntington Hartford II. George Huntington Hartford was a man of Victorian discipline. He raised his sons, John and George Jr., known as Mr. John and Mr. George, to live and breathe the grocery business. John Hartford was the visionary. He was the one who realized that the economy store, a small, no-frills shop with one clerk, could be duplicated in every neighborhood in America. By the 1920s, A&P was opening a new store almost every day. Their revenue exceeded $1 billion at a time when a loaf of bread cost pennies. The Hartfords were private. They didn't flaunt their wealth in the way the Vanderbilts or Astors did. They stayed in the shadows, focusing on the Great Atlantic and Pacific. They pioneered the private label brand, 8 O'Clock Coffee, which gave them profit margins their competitors couldn't touch. But as the patriarchs aged, the inheritance was funneling toward a grandson who had never stepped foot in a warehouse. Enter Huntington Hartford II. If his grandfather was the merchant prince, Huntington was the disinherited spirit. He inherited an estimated $90 million to $100 million in the middle of the Great Depression, roughly $2 billion in today's money. Huntington didn't want to sell groceries. He wanted to be a patron of the arts. He wanted to be a philosopher. Most of all, he wanted to be respected by an elite class that viewed him as nothing more than a grocery boy. The beginning of the end. While his uncles kept the A&P engine running, Huntington began his career as a professional spender. He started Show magazine. He poured millions into a handwriting institute. He bought a mansion in Hollywood. But his most ambitious and disastrous projects were yet to come. In 1959, Huntington purchased a strip of land in the Bahamas called Hog Island. He hated the name, so he spent a fortune to have the government change it to Paradise Island. This was meant to be his masterpiece, the anti-Miami. He built the Ocean Club, a Café Martinique, and even imported a 14th-century French cloister stone by stone. But Huntington was a terrible businessman. He refused to allow gambling on the island, which was the only way to make the investment profitable. Within years, Paradise Island became a massive hole in the Hartford pocket, bleeding millions of dollars every month. While the Bahamas were draining his cash, Huntington decided to wage war on modern art in New York City. He hated the abstract styles of Picasso and Pollock. To combat it, he built the Gallery of Modern Art at 2 Columbus Circle. The building was a marble fortress, but the art world laughed at him. He spent over $7 million on the building and millions more on a collection that the critics deemed irrelevant. He was a man out of time, fighting a cultural war he couldn't win with a checkbook that was finally starting to run dry. While Huntington was chasing his dreams, the red circle was fading. A&P failed to adapt to the suburban supermarket era. They stayed in cramped city locations, while competitors like Safeway and Kroger built massive parking lots and frozen food sections. By the 1970s, A&P was a zombie company. The dividends that funded Huntington's lifestyle stopped. He began selling his properties. He sold Paradise Island for a fraction of what he spent. He sold his museum. He sold his home. The quiet end. In his final years, the man who once owned the world's largest retail fortune lived in a small house in the Bahamas, cared for by his daughter. When he passed away in 2008, the Hartford empire was already a memory. The A&P name eventually went through multiple bankruptcies before disappearing from the American landscape entirely. Closing thought. The Hartfords didn't lose their money to a stock market crash or a single bad bet. They lost it because they forgot the one rule George Huntington Hartford lived by. Success is about the needs of the many, not the vanity of the one.